I'm Ben Penrod. We're the guys who started this show, we're just two dudes who came up to Alaska to hang out last year and decided to run a Comic-Con.
Well, Ben's being very modest. When he says just two dudes, I'll brag a little bit about my buddy Ben. About a decade ago, 15 years ago, I was asked to take over my local comic show in Richmond, Virginia. So we rebranded as the Virginia Comic-Con. And Ben came to me and I don't want to say that this is a catalyst for anything, but at one point he's like, Brett, I don't get it. Like, I think I just had my best year selling comics ever. And I turn around and I have no more money and all I have is mountains more comic books and something's up. And I was like, yo, I'm going to tell you something. There's no money in comic books. It's in promotion. Now, that's not to say that we're greedy, but the smartest people can find ways to bring events and make everybody happy and actually make a living. And so 3 years ago, Ben, after many interesting and smaller starts, Ben, 8 years ago started AwesomeCon DC, and AwesomeCon DC is graduated to having attendance of over 80,000 people. So when he says that we're just two dudes, we are just two dudes, and we're very lucky enough to run a handful of events throughout the year. But we're also those two dudes that can't ever stop thinking about running shows. So when we visit your town as tourists, everywhere we go, we think about, we can't help ourselves, but think about like how could we do something in this place? How could we do something in that place? Every town we sit in, every town we drive through, every town we go to a meeting in, that's kind of what life is like. But
anytime I see like a big open space, yeah, I'm just like, huh.
Or a giant building for sale. Yeah. It's like, oh boy, I could have my own con. And so, I mean, this really is what shoots through our heads. But Fairbanks has a very interesting thing. So the reason people have been, they asked me earlier, and Ben can probably elaborate, is why hasn't there ever been a bigger show in Fairbanks? And the reason is because the people that run most big shows are part of a committee or a corporation or an organization that when they open up a new show, a lot of times they've never been to that area or only very cursory, because they look at how many millions of people can drive in within a 2-hour drive. That's how other shows promote. They say, how many millions of people? Well, look, we could take every single human being in this state and not have 1 million people. So the thing is, there's nothing wrong with Fairbanks. It just doesn't produce the numbers that people that have never visited Fairbanks, they have no idea what this city is capable of. But we visited this town, and we saw how much love you guys had for pop culture. We visited the comic shop. We visited your toy stores. And we saw not just state-class organizations, we saw world-class organizations right here in Fairbanks. And we said, wait, I don't get it. Like, how does this one little town do everything so much better and in a smaller version than we've seen in other places? And I think that might answer why this hasn't happened before. It has nothing to do with you guys. The reason why we're having a town is because of you guys. We came here and it warmed our hearts. We came here as vacationers, and we've been back. He spent 5 weeks here over the last year, and I've spent 4 weeks here over the last year. So we really like this place.
That's kind of like our origin story, I guess. Yeah. But I didn't really. So I don't know. Whenever I do like panels like this, when I'm running the show, like I don't really prepare for it because I've been running the show. So we do everything kind of like really low key and free form. And so I think we're both happy to just like answer questions and then ramble on a little bit, and then after a certain point we'll be done at maybe 45 minutes or so. Yeah.
So who has the first question for us?
Oh wait, we're done. This is
Maybe
great.
we'll just point at people and say, what do you have to say?
I know. Oh, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah,
yes.
Go for it.
I was being polite and giving somebody else a chance to go first because you said the right thing.
Yeah.
By the way, do you know the Evan Rick guy sold out? And
We talked to Aaron. Yeah.
Oh, it's one of those tragic moments.
He said, "Sorry, I'm out of everything except for these little buttons."
They've got more of his books at Barnes and Noble though.
No, they called it. They said
They sold out too?
Yeah.
Holy crap!
Because I said, "Well, I got a picture of the one I want that you signed at Barnes and Noble. I figured I'd get it from you. If not, I'd go over and get it." He goes, "Good luck," because they called me, asked me if I had. I told them, "No, I don't have any here either."
Wow.
So he's sitting there doing nothing, going, If they have another one, I'm definitely coming back. So the question, of course, we all want to know is, are you even considering that this might be something?
Are we
you want to
considering
do?
it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because basically we've got some dates on hold for next year. We're just waiting for the hockey schedule to drop, and then we can get locked in on a specific weekend. It'll probably be this same weekend next year, or a week before or after.
So how many people?
It's always cool.
How many people were here yesterday? How many people had trouble walking around yesterday? Yeah, so that's kind of what we like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it might have been personal risk because we actually believed in this town. We knew what happened yesterday was going to happen, even though we didn't have the numbers. Nobody knows what the numbers are until Saturday when it actually goes down. But we knew that your town was capable of what we all saw yesterday, and really what's still going on today. Because we came here, we visited, we saw your ice carving tournament. I don't want to say that, oh boy, we're indoctrinated now, but yeah, we hung out in negative 35 degrees. We wanted to see what it was like. And our friends that are coming up from the lower 48, they're getting a kick out of this. They're like, this is the coldest I've ever been. I know it's a heat wave for you guys here at -8, but it's like, these are the great things that our guests are going to remember. I was on a panel yesterday and they said, how many of you 4 people on this panel would come back if you were invited next year? And they like broke their arms throwing it up in the air. So that's not saying that we're going to bring back the exact same people, but that when the people that flew in and left their families and left their homes and they're sleeping in a hotel and taking 12-hour airline flights, when they say we would come back, then that we have you guys to thank for that. That isn't us. We give them a space to stay in, a bed to sleep in. You guys make them feel welcome. So thank you.
Well, and when you approach new ones, as I said yesterday at one of the panels, lots of times Hawaii and Alaska get people only because they've been everywhere else.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you might want to think about that when you approach them.
Oh, yeah.
We've gotten some incredible people that all of a sudden the airport will go, why are all these private jets flying in? It's because you brought in a real unique person who's only here because he's checking off his boxes in the States.
I'll tell you that I heard from a few people who wanted to come to this show, but it was like, either we had already booked up all of our celebrities, or it just would have been that specific person might have been too expensive to take a chance on for the first year. But we heard from I heard from a number of different like celebrity guests that I've worked with in the past who were like, hey, I want to go to Alaska. I've never been to Alaska. I want to do this. And I'm like, well, maybe, we had already booked these guys out. So I was like, well, maybe wait until year number 2 and we'll talk about it. So, we've got some people in the back of our minds already. It's just, we have to confirm dates and things like that.
Well,
But
they don't realize it's only like 3.5 hour flight from Seattle. They think
Right.
they're going to
Yeah.
be on the plane
Oh, well,
for 10 hours. And
yeah.
it's like, no, if you get a direct flight, you don't stop in Andrews.
yeah.
Then they can be here
Yeah,
like that.
in a lot of people's minds, we're like literally on the.
I know.
It seems far because in the lower 48, what most people know about Alaska is when we watch Little Caesars ads, and it says all pizzas are $6.99 except for Hawaii and Alaska, where it's twice as much. And that's all that most people know about Alaska. But it's
all year round.
yeah. What's that?
They think it's winter here all year round.
And I'll tell you. For a city where I come from, where it's fairly cold, but we only get snow once a year, twice a year, this is like the most beautiful place I've ever been.
Yeah.
So I know it's probably old hat for you guys. You just like, oh, please melt snow. But gosh, it's just everything is so serene and fantastic. Like all I knew about trees covered in snow growing up were the like little trees on model railroads, and I was like, snow doesn't clump like that. That's so fake. And then I come out here, I'm like, oh, snow totally clumps like that. That's awesome.
This is like all of the Bob Ross like happy little trees out here.
Yeah.
Like all the time, they're for real. It's great.
Yeah.
It's even prettier. Like we had the first couple of snowfalls, and then we did an ice freeze basically, and it just looks like Christmas.
That sounds horrifying, but
No,
I've been in
It's
ice
really
before.
cold, but it's beautiful.
Well, they
Yeah.
have Chino Hot Springs in the 10,000 places to see before you
And
die.
that's
or whatever.
that's on our
really?
list
And
tomorrow.
that's really pretty, especially if it's cold because you get the
Yeah.
old frosty, your head.
Oh, the eyebrow frost.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
Really?
Well, and look, I see one of our friends from the furry community is here, and I really wanted to thank those guys because, look, in Virginia, these are the guys that like kids love giving hugs to. It makes for fantastic photography, and we understand the community nature of that genre of fandom, and so to see so many persons. I mean, I saw more persons in furry fandom here than I do in my show in Richmond, Virginia, with a population of 2 million people. So it's, yeah, it was a fantastic way to stay warm. So not only are we jealous, but we thank you, sir, or ma'am, or whoever you are today. So it's so we were really enthused when we just said, oh gosh, it's very complicated for two people and our friends to coordinate everything. So when we thought about gaming, we're like, oh gosh, let's reach out to the comic shop to have some gaming on site, and then let's also have some open gaming. And we thought, well gosh, who in the world's gonna bring their games to play here? And I went out there, I was like, oh, every single table full. I mean, folks just wanted a cool place in Fairbanks where, after, I understand we had a uniquely warm week this week, and it was a good excuse for people to get out of the house. And I hope Comic-Con made people feel like their 6 months of working on their costume was worth it, or am I going to be entertained at least $20 worth? And I don't know about you guys, but who here feels like they got at least $20 worth of entertainment? Okay, well that's darn near. Now I put you guys on the spot, but that's pretty darn near universal, because it's like, that's a lot of money to ask somebody to pay $20 for something they've never been to. That's more than a movie ticket. That's a lunch out somewhere. That is a legitimate sacrifice between doing this or something else. And the fact that all of you guys took a stab on something that you've never been out to, that's what makes us want to come back next year. That's the type of stuff that gets us excited. Not that we're greedy, but what we need more than anything is participation. And it seems like Fairbanks participated harder than any first-year show I've ever run in my life.
This has been a really great show. And for a first-year show, we've seen the types of social media engagement that we've never seen before. Just the participation from the community, the outreach we've gotten from people.
Yeah, just from a fan perspective, your social media has been fantastic.
Thank you.
I actually have a certificate in social media marketing and whatnot.
Very cool.
Nice. I'm a big focuser on that type of thing, and Alaska is very, very underrated because people think like you said, not even 1 million people, what can we do with that? And I think that's really cool. There are people out there willing to take the chance, because now you're going to start something that other people are going to follow suit. There will be other people that say like, oh wow, Alaska Comic Con made a big impact. There's something going here, let's check it out. It's going to solve a lot of misconceptions about Alaska, right, and what the pop culture here is, and what the draw and what the capability is for a fandom to come together like this, regardless of, and we drove 6 hours.
Where'd you guys come from?
Anchorage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To anybody who drove in, thank you.
But it was worth it, because we knew that it was going to be worth something. I've been to many cons and other places in the lower 48. I've been to Arctic Comic Con the last couple of years in Anchorage, and it's finally someone seeing that Alaska can do something. So.
Right. And yes, sir, in the back.
What can we expect for this show next year?
Shoot. I don't know. We just talked about that.
I hope more attendance and more dealers, because that's the way that we get bigger each and every year. But we counted the numbers, and once we hit 1 million people that came through the door yesterday, we just stopped counting.
1 million.
So it got real easy.
Why count after 1 million?
Yeah, right. It just so many run out of spaces on the calculator.
Yeah.
But no, I think a lot more of what we saw today. It's almost, this is thank goodness, because we like a more intimate setting. This seems to be the smallest attended panel that we've run, and we still have almost 20 people in the room, so this feels good. I just sat in on an academic panel, and typically the academic panels taught by professors in other shows are modestly to poorly attended.
Yeah, it's
and
like
it was
5 or 10
standing room
people.
only.
Yeah.
So when we see that many people curious and interested in learning about things that are part of this genre, it really does make us excited to want to come back. Now, I'll tell you, sir that I've never met before in my life or hung out with for a week in San Diego, that we very much, we have asked, ever since seeing our numbers up until 2 weeks ago, as of 2 weeks ago, we've been hounding the Carlson Center for dates, and we're just bouncing around the hockey schedule that they're waiting to drop. But if we could have signed a contract yesterday for next year, trust us, we would have done it. And so it isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Now, the con promoter always has a challenge of how do we outdo ourselves. If we have, if you have one person from Battlestar Galactica one year, you immediately think, oh, how do I get 3 people next year? And so it becomes this delicate balance of of now that we see how ravenous the fan base is here in Fairbanks, how do we still respect who you guys are while keeping it within our budgets? How do we mandate our risks? But I'll tell you, based on the turnout that we've seen this weekend, it allows us to reach out beyond just getting some of our absolutely best friends in the industry to come out. We can start branching out. But look, I'm gonna tell you, almost every guest that we had here made sacrifices to be here, whether it's travel or whether it's whatever. We all negotiated with our friends and we pushed them the hardest to give up the most to come here because we believed in you guys. And I think most of our invited guests gave us phenomenal response yesterday. Their numbers seemed national level numbers. I mean, national level numbers, guys. So, and what I mean by that is, when you buy that autograph or that photograph, and it seems like, wow, this is a lot of money. This represents a meal. This represents a new video game or something. That the only way that any of those guests come back or want to come back is if we don't make it kind of worth their time. And I heard that Fairbanks made it worth almost everybody's time. Yeah. So thank you all.
That goes for like the celebrities and for like the exhibitors who travel to be here. We do have people from all over the states. Exhibiting here.
Tucson, Arizona, just outside of Washington, D.C. Our t-shirt company's from where?
Oh, gee, I forgot. They're in
Portland?
They're from Illinois, yeah.
Illinois.
So they came in, but they're originally from here, and so they wanted to come back and visit their families.
To visit their family. That's why we have t-shirts for the show, is because the t-shirt people wanted to come back and say hi to mom and dad. People want to come back.
So but they traveled all this way with all of those t-shirts in their luggage, which is mind-blowing, because I don't know if you ever traveled with t-shirts, like 100 t-shirts in a freaking suitcase. It is not fun, and they are heavy. Did somebody have a question? Somebody go.
I was just gonna say, for the Comic-Con posters you guys did, was that somebody also that was like related to Alaska?
Yes.
This is a good story.
So oh my gosh, I totally blanked on her name. So this is a young woman who she is from here. She's in college right now. She's in
Seattle.
She's in Seattle. She might be. I think she's in Seattle or Portland right now, but she's in college. But she's from this area. I actually spoke with her mom yesterday. She's and she used to work at the comic shop, and so Kevin at the comic shop was like, oh, I know this great artist, and we're like, oh, cool, yeah, some local artist, and then so he said he organized getting that poster together. And then
personally paid for it.
Yeah, and the comic shop paid for the posters, and they distributed them all over town, and then when I saw that thing, I lost my mind. I immediately sent it to you.
It was adorable. It's the
cutest
poster I've ever seen.
I've probably run. I'm trying to think of how many shows I've run. I've probably run over 24 Comic Cons, and I'm sure you've run way more than that. And like I've had some cool posters, and I've had like some really big time professional level comic book artists do posters for us, and this is like the coolest thing I've ever had for one of my shows.
It was perfect. It's perfect. I could not have imagined a better poster.
Yeah, if I had described exactly what I wanted, it wouldn't have been that good. And it's amazing. It's so good, and I'm so happy about it.
And if you guys don't know what she's referring to, the comic shop made some official posters for the show. I think they're selling them for a very modest amount of money. Oh, she's gonna show it off.
Okay.
And it's like I said, it's done by an artist here local to Alaska, and it's a family of polar bears camped out in the snow underneath the Carlson Center with happy customers walking out of the Carlson Center with tons of amazing
and the little
stuff.
baby polar bears are reading comics.
Yeah.
So thank you for some PR there. And we did that all with our friends from the comic shop, who were so amazing at getting the word out, at helping us, because somebody mentioned social media before. Well, this is also one of those rare towns, and it's hard to completely explain this, but television and radio ads don't work anywhere on the planet right now other than in Fairbanks. So if you guys heard our ad on the radio or on the television, saw it on TV, that's because we started learning about the fact that, internet's really hard for some folks up here. And sometimes you don't get signal, and sometimes you don't have satellite or whatever. But like everybody that wants to pay attention listens to the radio and watches the local news. And so this isn't a way that has almost been completely abandoned where I come from. But you guys are still participating and interacting, and that type of media platform, which actually makes it real fun for us because we get to send a video to the TV folks, and then they tell us how best to market, and it gets pretty cool. Same thing with the like. There's a station here in town that runs like Wonder Woman and Star Trek, and we're like, yes, that we want to advertise.
We sent them a list of shows we wanted to be on, and it was like Wonder Woman, Star Trek,
Battlestar. I don't know.
It was like
Bonanza.
Bonanza, yeah, we definitely were on Bonanza. it was like anything with like any sort of fighting or superheroes. We were like, put us on, yes.
I think the Green Hornet might have been on.
Yeah.
But it's lovely, and the folks here were so easy to work with. I'll tell you another wild thing that we learned is that whenever we deal with anybody in Fairbanks and we send them an email, we actually get a response back like within hours. And I can't tell you how, like in the land of immediate culture, how sometimes very important emails in the rest of the world take days to get responded to. And no, it was like, not only did we get our questions answered, but we got them answered correctly and quickly. And usually they came back with a better response than we could have ever hoped for. Every single hurdle that we encountered engaging this show, we reached out to somebody locally who solved our problem and actually made everything better. Like it was just shocking how simple it was to run this show, considering that we both live 5,000 miles away. So it's I don't want to say that this was an easy affair, but it was something where whenever we had problems, we actually got the answer. We got the answer quickly, and I cannot tell you how hard that is in the real world. Not in the real world, but in other con promotion land.
Yeah.
Look, we've been eating a hell of a lot of Thai food since we've been up here, and that's delicious.
That's like a Q&A from us to you guys. Like, why are there so many Thai food restaurants?
Because the military, lots, because we have an army base and an Air Force base. That's a lot of it, but we also have we have a big Thai community.
Yeah.
In town also.
Well, it's a delicious
and
food.
we need fresh food because in Fairbanks it's hard to get the fresh food.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Spicy helps the cold.
So
Yeah, it's spicy.
That was it. Yeah, I was like, yeah. I normally I'm a very I perspire a lot, but I love spicy food, and it's a challenge where I come from because you eat spicy food and then you sweat all night long, and it's disgusting. But up here it's so dry that I can eat spicy food and not perspire, and I love it. So I'm just sitting there like, oh God, I'm dying, but it's delicious. Oh, and normally I just be pouring. Oh, it's disgusting. Nobody wants to sit anywhere close to me. But here I can eat all the spicy food and not get disgusting. So cosplayers, how long did you guys work on your costumes? Because I heard from a lot of folks that they worked on their costumes for weeks, months,
hours.
They had a cosplay thing at the fair this year, and a lot of people. That's the first time they had.
Oh, really?
And they already at the end of the fair they went, oh, we're still doing it. That was the biggest event we had.
Oh, so when was the fair?
Had it at the fair in
August.
whenever it rains.
August, okay.
The first week in August.
Okay,
cool. But it was the biggest event at the fair this year. So some of them I've seen that. That's the only place you see them either that or Halloween.
Yeah.
And there's not really a place for the adults.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we were able to. I mean, I don't know much of the statistics of Greater Alaska, but I sure hope that we had the biggest costuming event ever yesterday in the entire state. Like
There were so many people.
I cannot believe how many hundreds of like Hollywood caliber costumes we saw yesterday. It was really amazing.
Yeah. You got a question?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and ask if I could just take a quick picture with y'all.
Oh,
Sure,
yeah,
dude.
come on up. Happy to do it. What's your name?
My name is Kitty.
Hey, Kenny. Come on up, Kenny.
Kitty.
My name.
Oh,
Oh,
Kitty.
Kitty. My
Awesome,
name's
dude.
Brett. Hey, Kenny. Thanks for coming on out.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Went to school in Ordale here in town.
Yeah.
Well, comic shop every day after school.
Oh,
Awesome, man.
Oh,
That sounds like me,
You
man.
sound like me.
This is like a big comic town,
Yeah. All right, let's take a picture.
Well, look, it's guys just like you. Let's give a round of applause to Kenny. He goes to the comic shop every day. It's guys like him that let us do this.
All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Took a few for us.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you. You guys know Bob Ross station here?
What's that?
Bob Ross station here.
He was stationed. That's where he learned about the trees?
Yeah. Oh,
That's awesome!
Oh man, that's cool.
Yeah, what? Well, why wouldn't you? That's awesome. That makes so much sense. I gotta tell Jim. I gotta tell Jim about that. He's gonna lose it. Or Dan will.
Yeah. Dan just called me. I wonder what that's all about.
Probably something important. Whatever.
Yeah. But
One time I was doing a panel at a different con, and like somebody ran up and was like, Ben, we need you, and like we had just gotten robbed and I had to fill out a police report. Lame. Somebody stole one of our cash boxes. It was lame. So, but
that did not happen here.
No.
You guys
this
are all.
was,
You
this
guys
was
are all
years
good, honest
ago.
people.
We're way
Yeah.
more secure than that now.
Right. See, any other questions about us, about what it's like promoting con? Yeah.
I like a lot of people here. This is our first experience.
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of people, as they were walking around, were bringing in some of their stuff that was pop culture type stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if at other cons, what they do at other cons, but I know the equivalent of what we call antique roadshow here, where
Yeah.
people bring in something and go, what
Right.
is this and what is it?
Oh.
Is this, do cons ever have people?
So yeah, this is a great question.
Like
So
our
yeah.
son does Star Wars, so one of our friends that came to visit us sent back a book that was like, here, have them start looking. It was a book
Yeah.
on everything Star Wars and about
Yeah.
what they're worth. I didn't even know there was a book like that out there. But I don't know if there's a person who generally knows pop culture who could give these people an idea of this is really good what you have here, or you know what, let the kids play with it. That's it's not that valuable.
So,
Yeah.
so for a number of years, I was a professional appraiser. So I did vintage jewelry, paintings, and then moved into comic books. I was actually hired. It's like a collectibles consultant for ABC Television for a little bit, and I was this is weird. I'm the youngest person ever asked to be a member of the Overstreet Price Guide, which means I helped to set and evaluate the worldwide comic book market for vintage back issues. I'm also an advisor for the Underground Price Guide, which is all like the hippie stuff and the weed stuff from the 70s. And so I've done that thing in the past. We actually have two other professionals. So most of my specialty is in comic books right now, and we have two pros up here. And if we have signs printed up, we will appraise and buy your comic books here on site. But we haven't been offered anything. In the future, we like to offer that service if we know that the persons involved are true professionals. And we haven't had anybody reach out to us from the toy market or the card market at all. So we thought, well, we'll try it out with comics, just put up some signs and see what our responses are. We haven't had much response today, but it's not totally out of the question. And we might do a "What is my comic worth" panel sometime in the future, and I'm happy to tell folks.
Yeah.
The frustrating thing is most people it's very easy to, I don't want to say upset people, but sometimes people's favorite comic books are not necessarily worth terribly much. And so for somebody to bring a comic book all the way in here and pay their $15 and sit down and raise a question and be like, how much is this comic worth? And I say, buddy, I've got two of those things in my $2 box out there. You know, so sometimes we like to vet a little bit more just so we don't hurt people's feelings.
So it's not just the comic, I mean, like, the other stuff, like,
Yeah.
it's what, like, we're, because I contact you, we're ones that our kids have grown and flown, it's like, hey, you've got all this.
Oh, you have all the Star Wars stuff? Did I talk to you about the Star Wars stuff? Oh, cool, awesome. We're like old friends.
I don't know, and I'm talking to other people who work in the company, do they have somebody there that's going to embrace that? That's another way for you to have people who might be interested in doing that.
Oh no. Oh, you've got your panel right now. Okay, guys, I'm going to excuse myself. So I made a critical blunder. I thought it was important for me to bring my 15-year-old dog to Alaska Comic Con. And he is doing perfectly fine, but he's manning a booth all by himself. So I'm going to excuse myself.
All right.
I'm going to let Fantastic
I'll wrap it up.
do this.
I'll ramble on for like 10 minutes or so.
And guys, but my dog Mighty's been to all sorts of Comic Cons, including San Diego, Awesome Con, and I thought he's got to make it up to Alaska. So
He's loving this weather.
Yeah, he like.
But it's another avenue of people
Yeah.
who may not be in the Comic Con, but
Yeah.
may be interested in the novelty of
Yeah.
watching something like that.
Yeah, so we've occasionally done panels at different cons that are like kind of like an antiques roadshow
Right.
for collectibles. We don't have one scheduled this year for here, but
There is
but
such a
that's
thing.
there is such a thing. You just have to find an appropriate expert in whatever they're looking for. So like we've got people here who could appraise comic books, collectible trading cards, maybe some toys. The toy market's a little different, so you really gotta find an expert in the toy market, and the toy market is just much more broad and there's so much more, and there's probably somebody who's an expert in pre-1970 toys, or 1970 to 1995, or 1995 to present, or whatever. There's a whole different type of thing there, but that's totally something that does exist. Yeah.
Well, like there was the professor who did the Japanese toys. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
noticed that there was a man that brought up some Japanese
Oh, yeah.
toys that he had afterwards, and I thought he must have seen that here's what her.
Yeah,
her
absolutely.
talk was gonna
She
be
had the
about.
gachapon.
Yeah.
So that's I'm going to Japan in like
She
2
was
months.
really good.
Oh yeah, Dr. Fondavia, she's amazing. I hope we get to hang out with her a little bit. I'm going to Japan in like 2 months, and so hopefully we'll bump into her. That'll be pretty cool. I want to go to Nakano Broadway with her, which is like this. This is like this really cool little antique mall with different shops, and they sell all sorts of nerdy stuff. And they have just these shops that have like the awesomest vintage toys you've ever seen, and they're all displayed very carefully and like well lit, and like I feel bad almost buying something because they're displayed so well. But yeah, I'm gonna go check that out. They got some cool vintage toys there. So, any other questions? Anything else eating you up inside?
So along the toy lines,
Yeah.
I think something that I would like to see was more like a broader range of toys. Maybe you tried or whatnot, and I'm sure that's because it's smaller. It's not a huge thing right now, but that's one of the big draws for me at cons is going and finding old '90s stuff that I grew up with, things I have a hard time finding, or ridiculous prices that I'm just not looking to pay online. But that's one of the bigger draws for me, and I know a lot of my friends are the same. They just, so I mean that would be really cool to see, just a broader toy sale.
That's something that would be really awesome. I'm curious to find out what kind of toy collections might be in Alaska.
Exactly.
It's probably not, it's probably not as many as we'd hope, and there's probably not very many toy dealers. And if somebody has a really good inventory, bringing it up to Alaska is going to be real tough.
Right.
Because it takes up a lot of space. It's not a drive. It's a fly. You have to let it out of your sight for a little while, and a lot of these things are like, the toy is worth so much money, and then if the packaging gets dented, then it's not worth so much anymore. So you have to be real careful. But we did do an effort. I tried to get some toy people out. I knew some people who sold like Funko Pops, and I was really hard selling them on it. I'm like, this is gonna be a really good show. Like, I'll find the flights for you to book. Like I'll do the work. And it just didn't end up, whatever. But it's the first year event. I think people are seeing how well this does, and I think the number of big dealers that we're going to have next year is going to be pretty cool. Yeah. So, but yeah, I would love that toys. It's always really cool. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything else? You got any more questions?
I always have questions.
Oh, let's go. You got good questions.
It was a little bit confusing when we first came in yesterday. It was kind of like chaos. And nobody knew what line to get in. Some of us had already gotten.
Yeah.
So I'm just letting you know so that you can. A lot of us, I could see people had their ticket. They run off their tickets, and there was other people that were starting from scratch. And somebody started saying, "Well, if we already have a ticket, where do we go?" And they were going, "Well, you go there or you go here." And I had asked like 4 times before I figured out, because otherwise we would have been back at really good line people.
We thought we had
if there was a special place that was clear of if you already ran them off. Come here.
We thought we had a good system in place beforehand, but we hadn't been to this. We hadn't actually done this before here, so it didn't quite work out as we planned. I think everybody still got in okay. It wasn't actually too bad. We also had a few people that were going to help us out who kind of flaked on us, so we kind of rushed things together. I think all in all, it went okay, and we definitely know what to do better for next year. Yeah.
Well, it's good to know. It's good to hear that was confusing when you came in, just because that was the purpose of running it off. Was that you
absolutely. I totally get that.
There was nobody in line. It was just everybody in line to go into the line.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good. And I appreciated when I did contact you. You guys got back right away. So the marketing guy, he knows how important it is that you do communicate with the people that ask you questions. So besides having good platforms, all your people were good on being on social media too.
That was just me,
so it was easy to look them up and get information.
That was just me. So yeah, I'm always on there. I'm running this is 3 out of 4 shows since November. So I've just been on Facebook and email, replying to everybody for the past 4 months. But it's fine. I like getting in touch with everybody. It's cool. But yeah, see, you should have bought that all that stuff. You would have sold out probably.
Well, the reason I did is my son, and the shift he had people were taking off work. I mean, if you were at the grocery store, anytime after Christmas, people were going, if you want to take off, you better let the boss know, because everybody wants Comic-Con weekend.
Oh, okay,
It was
that's
kinda
cool.
like the chat at the stores.
Well, I like that. That's cool.
So I told my son, you need to put in for it, because otherwise I don't want to be at your
Oh,
table,
okay, I see what
because
you're
I don't know all your stuff. And so I wasn't able to get the commitment from him, and I didn't know what to expect, so I thought maybe we'll just hold out
Yeah.
that they'll do it again. And then I'll know to tell him to get the dates
Yeah.
off.
Well, you can, it's always next year, so.
Well, we didn't know that though.
Yeah.
Depending what happened
Yeah.
this year.
So, but yeah, I'm sure you would have done all right. Everybody's just selling out of all their stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Cool.
But that's okay too.
Any other questions? You guys got questions? Anybody? No. All right. Well, we'll probably wrap up in just a couple minutes. I just want to say thank you guys so much. This has been awesome. I've been to Fairbanks like 4 times in the past year, and it's been super fun. And everybody's been so welcoming, and everybody's been so supportive of this venture. And we knew it was going to go pretty well. From there, we had a lot of. We were very optimistic about it, and we had a pretty good idea that it would go well. But it's actually gone even better than we hoped. And I really appreciate all the support. I appreciate all of you guys coming out and supporting us in whatever way you have. I know we got some people who've helped out at the show and in different ways, and people who just came to have a good time, which is awesome too. And I really appreciate it so much, and I can't overstate that. And this has been relative to the amount of work I've had to do, the most fun I've ever had at a show, and it's been a blast. So yeah, I can't wait to do it again, and the rest of the day is going to be super fun too. So it's good.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Now, you're going to be able to break up, rather than just having 2 rooms, could you break it up so you could have